G'day legends, I hope that you're doing well. Look, let's waste no time and let's have a look at the maps because there are a few updates. Today is the 11th of March. We'll roll back through a couple of days, but as always, Ukraine, and here we have Romania, Moldova, Poland, Belarus, and Russia from here around to here. The red parts being what Russia has captured since 2022, and the more maroony purple parts Russia has taken since 2014, with notably this being Crimea to the south. As with everything, you need to take everything with a grain of salt, but my friend says to me, hey man, another update. So, it turns out the claims of you holding Bakhmut was a trick. Currently, the Ukrainian Armed Forces guns are up, and along with the 77th and my team, the Russian forces advanced and has stalled. But the Ukrainian Armed Forces have been getting smashed. The Russian forces have also destroyed the MiG statue in Bakhmut, which is now under Ukrainian Armed Forces fire control, being from artillery pieces. As a result of the evacuation, the Ukrainians have been able to build up around 50,000 reserves, as they have taken fewer casualties. Unfortunately, it looks like we might all be thrown into a huge operational counteroffensive from the northwest and southwest. If this is true, then we are fucked. Ukraine does not have the reserves to take and hold ground, as the axes are not mutually supporting. Now, mutually supporting axis is when, one axis is supporting the other one through fire, nor is the ground favourable for an attack on any axis. Additionally, the commander of the defence of Bakhmut has said the offensive will begin next week. Unless this is a ruse, and you shouldn't do that. These reserves could be used in the upcoming southern offensive, but unfortunately, they may as well be wasted in this joke. So let's have a look at the map and see what he's actually talking about. Now, he has drawn this little map for me here, showing from the north, northwest, southwest. This is based off the axis of Bakhmut. So this is to the northwest, the northeast, but basically just the north down from Seversk, where we've talked about where they are funneling more troops into support in case of a flank. And they're calling this the southwest. And he said what you should do to have confirmed this is have a look on the Rybar map, and it shows very similar to this. So we're looking on this sort of dead northwest, the dead west, and the southwest from here. And what he said, he called just the north, but I guess you could slightly northeast, but the northern assault. And he said it is very, very similar. As he says, his concern is that these are not mutually supporting each other. And he sent me this as well, showing which way the Russians are pushing. So this reservoir here is reflected by this one here. This, of course, is the live UA map, but he says they're going in this direction in an attempt to push forward and cut off Chasiv Yar eventually with their artillery as well. The Russian forces are attempting to isolate Chasiv Yar with artillery as Ukrainian Armed Forces counterattack by the 77th and the Ukrainian Foreign Legion troops prevented a breakthrough in the north. Units like the 24th have been evacuated and replaced by the 80th Airborne. Additionally, Ukraine has reinforced Seversk due to a fear of being outflanked. Although at the end of the day, I can't confirm or deny this bit. It's just information from my friend, and he said that's the best information he's got. But it could all just be a ruse to give the Ukrainian Armed Force more time to withdraw. It's all within the fog of war, and there are larger tactics at play here. So I can't really tell you exactly what's happening, but as always within a war, both sides could open themselves up to an offensive operation, especially when you're trying to move through areas and trying to encircle things. You yourself open up to the risk of that, and Russian forces are putting themselves at that risk, but at the same time, the Ukrainian forces are putting themselves at the risk of being surrounded. So it's very hard to actually tell what is going on. So like I say, everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt, and we will see what actually happens in the future with geolocation and the map movements. If we see over the past 48 hours, there has been some movement to the northwest here along this road, and you can see here now that's minor movement, but you never know with these flanking maneuvers. But let's also have a look at what has been happening in the past 48 hours. So one of the big ones we see over the past 24 hours, 48 in Bakhmut from the 9th to the 11th, remember my map didn't update yesterday, was that Russia has pushed right up to the Bakhmut River right here. So moved through these blocks, and I guess we can assume that now there is no Ukrainian forces on the east side of this river. Now the ISW map has shown this now for a number of days, that the Russian force has been confirmed on this river, but the deep state has updated there, as well as reports of some, I would say, major movements. Some people say they're not minor, but I would say fairly major because they've managed to get this small town village in here as well of Russian movements to the northwest of Bakhmut heading west. So as you can see, from the 10th to the 11th, from the 9th to the 10th and then the 11th, there has been some level of movement as well on the southwest. Russia has had small gain across this road here. But otherwise, over the past 24 to 48 hours, we haven't really seen any other major territorial gains or losses, although there is heavy fighting, as always, all across the front line. Now, the Wagner boss Prigozhin on March 10th claims the Wagner Group currently operates recruitment centers in 42 Russian cities, recruiting Russians. But we also know that there are a number of Western soldiers who have joined Russia's Wagner Group through some back streams. And in an upcoming video, I will talk about some information that I may have fallen upon about joining Wagner and crossing borders illegally, so there's no evidence you've actually crossed into Russia and joined, and it's very interesting. But Prigozhin released this video talking about the ideology of Wagner.
Артемовск мы возьмем, после этого мы начнем потихонечку перезагружаться, уменьшаться. Дальше мы перейдем в новую стадию, начнем набирать людей в различных регионах. Этих людей мы планируем набирать, и ЧВК «Вагнер» должна превратиться из просто частной, лучшей в мире, подчеркиваю, армии, которая способна оборонять государство, она превратится в армию с идеологией. И эта идеология, это как раз борьба за справедливость.
It has been widely reported that there is tension between Vladimir Putin and Prigozhin, and Kremlin fears of a leadership coup. Now, this is somewhat backed up by the earlier complaints of limited ammunition being supplied to Wagner Group. Now, with the upcoming spring offensives and new weapons, we will see a lot more movements soon. Spring in Ukraine is between March the 1st and the 31st of May. And we've already started to see the delivery of Leopard tanks into Ukraine, although there is no evidence of them yet being used in any combat. Although pro-Russian groups have claimed to have killed some, posting photos, and these photos are from past conflicts or training footage of bogged vehicles. Not only this equipment, but the Ukrainian soldiers trained in the West are completing their training and coming back for these upcoming offensives. I should add that people somewhat think that the learning is one way, being the West soldiers just teaching the Ukrainians. Now, that may be the case with tactics and weapon skills, but very, very few Western soldiers have any combat experience, let alone experience in a conventional war of this scale. And that experience and lessons learned are invaluable. So I know the Western troops are getting a lot out of this, and this goes from the private soldier all the way to the generals. You know, soldiers will share battlefield experience with one another, while generals will get experience of large-scale movements and logistics. Also, Norway will provide Ukraine with 2 complete NASAMS firing units. These are an anti-air system, in cooperation with the United States. These come in addition to the 2 firing units provided by the US last fall. These will significantly improve Ukraine's ability to protect its cities and critical infrastructure from Russian missile attacks. Norway will also train Ukrainian personnel in the maintenance and operation of their systems, although a growing issue universally is cheap drones, and especially cheap drones versus these systems. Now, each missile in these systems costs roughly $1 to $1.2 million US, which potentially can be taken down a cheap drone. For example, a Shahed is around $20,000. Now, these systems, including the S-300s, S-400s, the Russian systems, have the potential to be overwhelmed by cheap aerial targets. And in modern warfare, this is an issue that has not yet been solved. That you're taking $1 million or well over $1 million missile and hitting a very cheap drone. And you have these drones and these whatever else in a lot more numbers than you do these missiles. So it's very hard. And when you hear about, this system can track 400 targets. Yeah, that's great. They can track that many. An F-35 can track hundreds of targets too, but they'll only carry a limited amount of missiles, being on the ground or in the planes, whatever. At the end of the day, you're limited by the number of actual missiles. And when you're talking $20,000 drones, they can be overwhelmed. And we don't have a solution to this yet. When I was in Afghanistan against cheap drones, there was Remington shotguns. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Look after yourselves. Okay, bye-bye.